All right, here's a topic few are talking about. Stick around for what I've got for you today.
This is the Franchise Pitfalls and Profit Show. Each week, we bring you the challenges and triumphs of being in the franchise development and consulting business. The things you need to make money faster. And now your host, one of the most successful franchise developers in North America, Don Shin.
Wow, I'm really excited about talking about this topic with you today because I think it's something that most people don't talk about. Most training doesn't go over. And honestly, I think sometimes people are just afraid to go here, or they do it in bits and pieces, and they just don't address what's really going on. So today we're talking about the psychology of franchise buyers and their decision making processes. I want you after today to have a really good understanding about buyers persona. So let's dive into this. So franchise buyers typically are going to fall into several categories, and each have different kind of psychological drivers. And you've got to be aware then of who you're actually dealing with. And again, whether you're a broker or a Fran Dev rep, most of what I'm going to say really applies across the board to both of you. So, buyers, categories, what are they? Well, one of them is going to be career escapees. I've often called myself even a corporate refugee. These are professionals that are seeking independence. They want to get away from corporate life. You've heard it said sometimes they want to stop working for the man. But they're coming out of a corporate or a more professional background, if you will. Another one is you have what's called entrepreneurs in waiting. People that really have the entrepreneurial spirit, they have a business owner mindset, but they want some structure. They're entrepreneurs, but they want some structure. They want some support. The career escapees absolutely want that support that they've been used to in their profession from their employer. And the entrepreneurs in waiting who are interested in franchising, they want the same thing. That they want some support in addition to systems and processes that they can operate right away. And I'll just throw out a quick caution. There's another subcategory I would call wannabe entrepreneurs, and they'll spend a lot of time with you. They'll waste your time in a lot of regards. There some people just will really never uh, pull the trigger, so to speak. They'll never move forward, but they just want it. They just want to be that, but they're never going to really go there. So entrepreneurs in waiting. A third category are investors. These are savvy people, really have a different psyche. You really need to approach them differently. This is one that you won't see a lot of these. I don't think. My experience is haven't seen a lot of these people, but they've got more of a hands off mindset, and this is not easy to find in franchising, um, because a lot of franchises say, yeah, you can get there, but you got to operate the business for 1 or 2 years first, and you've got to get our approval. You've got to get the approval of the franchisor. So investors are, it's harder to find and match investors. But boy, when you do, these are big deals. Maybe it's somebody that's got that investor mindset, but they're able to put a certain amount of time into the business for 6 or 9 months. And there's a lot of franchise brands that will allow that. If they're committing, 20 to 30 hours a week for a period of time to get the business up and running, to hire the people that are going to run it on a daily basis. So look for some of these categories or people that fall into the category of investors. So we talked about career escapees, entrepreneurs in waiting, investors, and the last category I think that I like to talk about are legacy builders. These are people that are really have a different motivation. They want to create generational wealth. They want to leave something for their family. They want to build an asset. A lot of people that go into franchising are really in it for income. These legacy builders want to build an asset. So they're looking for a business that they don't have to run forever themselves. And they're looking at businesses that have the opportunity to bring in family members and employ family members. So again, legacy builders are motivated in different ways than the other categories. So you want to develop kind of lead qualifying questions, if you will, that's going to identify what is the core motivation, how you can slot them in, at least in your own process and in your own mindset. And then early on, knowing this early on, you're going to be able to adjust some of your processes in order to deal and be of most value to them early on. All right, so let's talk about some psychological drivers as they're going through the decision-making process. One of them is, and I talk about this all the time, as being a deal killer in franchise sales, and that is the fear, and specifically fear of failure. They're worried about the financial risk. They're worried about can they really operate this? Most franchises don't want people to bring in existing industry experience because they're afraid they'll bring in baggage. They'll bring in bad habits. And so most franchisors want somebody to come in without industry experience, exception being restaurants typically. So, but the buyers, their psyche is, wow, I don't know anything about this business. I don't know anything about dog washing. I don't know anything about a handyman business. I don't know anything about the janitorial space. So they come in with fear of failure because of this lack of expertise and potential operational challenges. Another psyche that they're dealing with is their desire for control. And a lot of people are, they're so heavily scrutinized in the corporate world and by an employer. Maybe they're micromanaged, and so they're bouncing out of something like that, and they're really looking for control. And a franchise should offer them that balance. And as those of us in the franchise placement or the franchise sales space, we want to highlight this balance of, I've often heard it said, being in business for yourself, but not by yourself. Having structure, but you still got to get up every day, and you still have to hire and lead people, and so on. So there's a desire for control in the mind of the buyer, and we have to let them do that, and understand the context by which they can actually do that, even in the franchise system. Another big mindset, or on the minds of people psychologically, is just this validation that they need from people. They're often looking for affirmations from family, from friends, from prior industry peers. So you've got to have good questions to find out who else is influencing them. Who actually are actual stakeholders, and not just influencers. And you want to tailor your conversations and your questioning to find that out, and then to also deal with what they are hearing. And again, this is important when you convert them and pass them on to franchisees, or when they're going through the validation process. It's a good way for them to feel that when they hear the stories of franchisees, to then apply that, not directly, but apply that to the decision-making process as they're working with their own, the people around them that are influencing them. So you're going to have obviously family members and direct family, which are the stakeholders, but you might also have someone like a mentor, that they've had a mentor in their life, or you might have someone like their financial advisors, or their accountants. So recognize recognize who is influencing the decision. And then the last one here on the psychology of the prospect is going to be just information overload. There is just so much information out there about buying a business, starting a business, buying a franchise, and this just leads to confusion and leads to indecision. Honestly, for those of you in the business, you'll understand the phrase ghosting. And often the ghosting is happening later on in the sales process, and you're wondering why. Everything was going so well. Well, it's this information overload problem. It's them overall just getting overwhelmed, which ties back into couples over in with the fear. So recognize this, and as you're working with candidates, I talk a lot and I teach a lot about pace and volume of information and momentum and how critical that is. You want lower volumes of information typically in the earlier stages so that you really don't overwhelm them so much, or they think, oh, I've got enough information, and the answer is no. So volume of information, pace, and you're wanting to build momentum to be getting them excited as time goes on, and not being more fearful or feeling overwhelmed. Mapping out the sales funnel now and connecting it with the psychology of the buyer. Lead generation in the early stages, people are pretty much just curious. And this is something that frustrates brokers, I know. Wow, this person asked for information. Why aren't they returning my phone call? Well, again, they might have just had early stage curiosity and considering options in their mind, but they don't need the direct contact, and just maybe not that serious just quite yet. So what you want to do in your process as you're working with folks is really to try to grab their attention, and educational content helps a lot. Social media posts, even webinars. Maybe you write a blog. Maybe you write articles for a magazine. These are all great things to help people through what you would call the lead generation stage in the funnel. Then you move into the funnel, which is lead qualification. And the buyer, again, serious people are actually now going to, with you, start thinking about fit. When you, again, as a broker, when you're showing them brands, or as a franchise brand development rep, you're showing them your concept. People are going to, their mindset is one of simply, is this a good fit? I often think, people, and again, I come from a really, really strong sales background. People often, we used to be taught objections. I think a lot of times objections are not really hurdles or barriers. In some cases they are, but not always. I think of them, and I try, my approach is always to think, well, that's just their mind trying to figure out a way to make this work. And so those of us in this space, if you approach their questions and what you might have considered them to be objections in the past, think of them more as their mind trying to sort out how this works, trying to sort out how this actually fits. And so your buyers are assessing costs and risks. They're assessing the culture of your company. This is one that's been a conversation point for a lot of us in the space. Are we finding people that have good culture fits? The buyers are actually starting to kind of lift this up as a more important factor to them. So, for example, if it's a franchisor that gives a lot back to their community, or very intentional about percentage of their sales goes to needs in the community, needs in the world. So culture has been important, and buyers are actually saying that. People are also, you're also trying to qualify folks financially, as well as what I always use the phrase transferable skills. So So you want to, on the Fran Dev side, on the broker side, you want to be using this lead qualification space. You really want to use those discovery calls to help the candidates understand more about the business, about the brand, and again, trying to understand their motivations and their priorities. Then I think people, I think there's an education phase. I don't know that we always highlight that so much on the funnel, but I think there literally is an education phase, certainly in the mind of the buyer. They want to learn as much as they can about the system. Does this really work? Is it easy to operate? And so developers in particular, you've got to have a clear, visible, open overview about your process. You can use financial performance. Again, if you're the franchisor and you have a strong item 19 in your FDD, this is really good. At this stage, educating the buyers as to if you operate the system well, you learn and operate it as we teach it, how much you can earn. And then lastly, I think there's what I call an immersion phase. Some people call it a validation phase. The buyer is now, if they've stuck with you that long, the buyer is now starting to find or move into the logic phase as opposed to an emotional phase. They're trying to overcome the doubts. They're trying to connect all the dots. They're trying to put things together to be sure this works. And so, again, this is where you as the franchisor and certainly as the broker as well, encourage them to go to that validation call step. You want, because that's going to help them feel really immersed in the business as much as they can, short of actually owning one themselves. Same thing with Discovery Day. You're going to meet the people that are supporting you, or they're meeting the people that are going to support them if they move forward. So this is very much, they're immersed in the business at this phase. So then final decisions, wrapping things up from the perspective of the sellers and the brokers. It's closing the deal, if you will. What often happens quite a bit is the candidates again start to get fearful here. They sometimes start to feel overwhelmed again here, and so you've got to be recognizing this. You've got to be aware of this, that the fear is bubbling back up, even if you've addressed it before. So you want to be very, very clear about the steps of making the decision. You want to personalize it as to the people, the names of the people that are going to be the post-sales support and onboarding. I like to help people at this stage with, I call it kind of a checklist mentality. Okay, we have 9 steps in our sales process, in our mutual evaluation process, and we're at step number 7, and it's going to take another 2 weeks or so to finish this up. And so what do you think is a comfortable decision date? So you're helping them close the end of the process. Also in this way, you're not going to have them drift. I think sometimes consciously, a lot of times subconsciously, people come up with other things that they think they need to do in order to make a decision, when really all they're doing is avoiding making the decision. So in actuality, they're adding more stress to the whole process, and non-intentionally. So if you can help them manage that closing steps and make a decision, an educated, solid decision, you're actually helping them reduce some of their stress levels in the long run. So some practical tips: use emotional intelligence, EQ. People buy on emotion. I've always been taught 80% of the sales on emotion, 20% is on logic. So you'll go through your sales funnel, a lot of emotion in there, and you want to do that. You want to be comfortable there, but recognize they'll justify, they'll validate on logic. So listen. listen for those emotional key points, whether they be concerns or whether they be real positives, and tailor your conversations and remember those things, the things they were telling you in the first third of the process. You want to be sure you're reinforcing some of that in the end of the process. Another practical tip is to just leverage fear of missing out, FOMO. Um, you can highlight market trends that are going on that they're going to want to, boy, I do want in on this. Territory availability, some of you don't have that problem, but a lot of you do. I know there's quite a bit of really good brands out there that unfortunately don't have a lot of available territory. You'll know that as a broker of the territory. You'll know that as your Fran Dev rep of your own brand, and you can use that fear of missing out, of getting in on this business that obviously, since they're almost sold out, obviously it's a great business and your territory is still open right now. And there's also time sensitive ways and urgency. End of the year you can use, maybe talk to your tax advisor. Would it be better to make this decision this year, get some tax advantages into this year versus next, that kind of thing. So there's ways to create some urgency, and people won't want to, they'll have the fear of being left out. And then another really practical tip, I've kind of talked on this, is we have to paint the picture. I think particularly the brokers, we have to paint the picture of what this really looks like. We want to be transparent. You can certainly highlight the government statistics about success in franchising. However, you want to be transparent. You want to be straight with them and honest with them. There are going to be some challenges. This is why it's so important to have their spouse and the direct stakeholders involved in the decision making, because there's going to be times when the business, knocks your legs out from under you, and you don't want to go home figuratively or literally and get stomped on there, as well as, I told you this was going to happen. So be transparent with them about challenges, and also help paint the picture, because vision, most prospects have a lot of dissatisfaction, but they don't often have the vision. They have this subtle sense that business ownership is going to take away some of their problems or dissatisfaction, but they don't really have a clear picture of what the vision of business ownership looks like. And we need to do that in our position in this transaction. We need to do that. And also, lastly, just follow up strategically. And I think the best way to do that is through a CRM. There are specific CRMs for franchise development. Any CRM will help you and be good. But I think to really track the sales funnel, there are some CRMs that are very specifically designed for this industry. So that's going to be important. But regardless, have a CRM. So last thing I want to talk about is what I love to do is collaboration between brokers and franchise dev reps. So you need to share insights. You need to share what you're hearing. Sometimes one of the two of you will hear more of the motivations or the challenges. You want your messaging to be consistent. The broker doesn't want to be saying something different or out of sorts than what the developer and the brand really wants. And then sometimes you can have some joint calls even with the candidates. A lot of times it's probably not necessary, but sometimes at the beginning of the sales funnel or the process, it's great to be able to make a personal Zoom with your face live introduction to the franchise development reps. So let's just wrapping this up. If this is rarely discussed, the psychology. This is why I really wanted to bring this topic to you. If you master some of these psychological triggers of the buyers, if you align them in your process with great questions and good scripting, then these the sales funnel stages will go smoother. It'll increase your conversion rates. It'll increase your number of placements. You'll build great relationships with your franchisees if you're the FranDev rep, and really the overall process and experience that you'll be providing for your candidates is really going to be streamlined, but really very supportive of them buying or making a go or buying decision. So I encourage you, as your next steps, take some of the tidbits that you learned here, take them and apply these insights to your pipeline, to your sales funnel. Track any changes that might be occurring, good or bad, in your buyer engagement, and watch your conversion rates over the coming quarter.